Hey there, baseball fans. Nathan Rohde and David Seifert here, wrapping up the 2018 MLB Draft with a special episode of Coffee and Curveballs. David, pretty wild 3 days, as always expected. 40 rounds. There's bound to be surprises up and down the draft. But let's talk about some picks from each day that stood out, and then at the end, we'll go over some teams that we thought really stood out to us overall in the draft. But kicking it off, let's go back to day one. What were some picks on day one that really stood out for you, as things were progressing along?
I think the first one, the ninth pick overall, kind of caught us by surprise. We had heard a little bit before the draft that, hey, maybe Kyler Murray was jumping up to the A's with the ninth pick. And I don't say we dismissed it, but it was like, oh, that's good to think about. But then when they actually did, it was like, wow, this is a reality. Kyler Murray may get bought out of football with a $4.8 million slot value. We haven't seen the terms or if he even agreed to terms yet or whatever, but I would hope for $4.8 million or around that he gave up football forever, no more football. But if he didn't, kind of see the terms. So that one is going to play itself out here probably in the next week or so. And I guess the two others really, number 18 when the Kansas City Royals snagged Brady Singer, a top 10 overall talent. I mean, high on everybody's list, and he fell to 18. That was a great steal by the Royals. And then shortly thereafter, with Ryan Rolison going to the Rockies at 22, I saw him in the Cape last year. Love the guy. 6'3", 200 pounds, athletic, throws in the low 90s, has a plus breaking ball. I mean, that's the type of guy you usually get in the top 5 or 10 overall picks, and they got him at 22. So one surprise and a couple big steals. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, those are tremendous value picks as well for me because, at one point or another, Brady Singer, we're talking about him as a 1-1 candidate, and Ryan Rolison, he didn't have the spring, to be a 1-1 candidate, but you talk about a lefty with a breaking ball and command, those guys are certainly in the conversation for being 1-1, and to get them where they did, that's pretty tremendous value.
Well, for sure. If you flash back to 2014 when the Rockies got Kyle Freeland at number 8 overall, there were probably some teams that thought that was an overdraft, but the Rockies sure didn't. Look how it worked out for them. And Rolison's a little bit more durable build than Freeland, but similar guys, low 90s with a breaking ball. That plays in the big leagues, from the left side especially.
It certainly does. Speaking of left-handers, one of the picks that really stood out for me was Matt Liberatore. You and I both had him number one on, our boards early on. Obviously, Casey Mize separated himself eventually in the spring, but Liberatore we still had pretty way up there. He's, since October, been the number one high school guy in our high school rankings. He goes to 16, at the Rays. That's unbelievable to me, that he's a top 5 pick. And to get a guy like that, frontline starter at 16 for the Rays, especially since they're working with 5 picks in a bigger draft pool, than almost anybody. I think they had the second highest pool. To get Liberatore with their first pick, they probably didn't think that, going into the draft. Obviously, I think a deal was eventually worked out, and that probably moved him down a little bit more. But if you asked them a week before the draft, there's no way they're thinking that, yeah, we'll get Matt Liberatore at 16. That guy should have been off the board, at worst at 7 or 8.
Yeah, if you want a big bonus, you go where the most money is, right? So that may have been more agent-related and advisor-related than, team related. Just kind of they had the money, so people were coming to them. I think, unfortunately, that's one of the toughest part of the drafts is the general public has a hard time understanding the baseball draft because there's so many moving parts. It's so dynamic. It's not like the NFL or the NBA where pick one, it's slotted, you get this amount, and the best player goes, and the next best player goes, things like that. Major League Baseball, there's just so many moving parts to it. It's tough to understand, but that's exactly what happened, I think, is they got a deal. We'll know here in the next week what that deal was for, and good for Liberatore. He's a very talented lefty.
All those moving parts is a big reason why I'm an advocate for not trading picks in the future like the NFL does. So hopefully,
moving parts.
Exactly. So, but one more pick on the first day that stood out for me was Bryce Terang getting to the Brewers at 21 overall, I believe it was. Another guy that, we knew probably was sliding a little bit because of the spring that he had offensively, not showing quite the impact bat that you would want out of a top 5 or 10 pick. But it's a big league shortstop, big league bloodlines, plus runner. I think the bat is going to come around because he's just too good for it not to, and the makeup I think is really good. So for the Brewers to get a guy, it should have been a top 5 pick. When the kid was younger, we were talking about him being a 1-1 candidate.
Right.
To get him at 21 is tremendous.
Oh, for sure. I didn't see Trang like you did in the spring, but I saw him at the area code games, and yeah, very talented ball player. Is going to stay in the middle of the diamond, polish stroke, probably hit 2-hole or 6 at worst. So yeah, very very good player there for the Brewers as well.
And then also one more I want to add real quick. Alec Thomas in the second round for the Diamondbacks is huge for me. I think that he should have been a first rounder, back of the first round guy. Get him in the second round. Obviously, plus defender. He can really run. I think he's really going to hit with loose hands, loose swing. I think that's another tremendous value pick. But let's move on to day 2 of picks. We go rounds 3 through 10. So the early part of day 2 is really interesting because you get to see some of those guys. They work deals probably overnight because they didn't go on day 1. Before things kind of hit that lull, we start to see a lot of those discount picks, those senior signs to save money. But early on in day 2, we heard some interesting names. But then there were a few still trickled in later on, in the 6th to 10th rounds when we see a lot of discounts. What were some picks on day 2 that stood out for you?
My favorite one overall, I really liked him last year when he was a junior. He didn't get drafted. And this year, he got drafted in the 6th round by Boston. Devlin Granberg, he's an outfielder from Dallas Baptist University. Maybe there's something I don't know, which is very, very possible. But, the guy hit .430 with 13 or 14 home runs, stole 26 bases. He's 6'2", 225. He's kind of looks similar to Kevin Youkilis. Plays left field. He has a left fielder's arm, so he's probably going to play left field, maybe first base if he slows down in the future. But he's an above-average runner right now. But I didn't understand why he fell so far, so there's probably something I don't know. And then the other one, a guy in the draft room I tried really, really hard to get last year, and our area scout liked him as well, was Bryce Montes de Oca. What's not to like? I think the Mets got him in the 9th round. He throws 100. He has a plus breaking ball. His command comes and goes. Some days you'll see it really good, and other days you won't see it much at all. But that's what you're getting, man. You're getting a big 6'7" hulk of a man with a 100-mile-per-hour fastball and a plus breaking ball. So in the 9th round to get that, that's an unbelievable pick.
And for me, the 3rd round started off, there was like 9 college guys right in a row, but then with the 10th pick on day 2, the Blue Jays get Adam Kloffenstein, who's a guy I know you like as well, big right-hander out of Texas. They actually got Jordan Groshans with their first pick in the 1st round, who's a teammate of Kloffenstein, which I found interesting. Groshans probably fit more where Kloffenstein went, and Kloffenstein certainly could have fit more where Groshans went.
Yeah.
So, obviously you can play around with the money like that, but to get a guy like Adam Kloffenstein in the 3rd round, he's a big, strong kid. He's young for the class. He's got plus stuff. He's a guy that you never would have thought would have been in 3rd round. Blue Jays jump on him. Obviously, get him and Groshans. That's a pretty good haul for early on in the draft.
As you could have a big power bat in Groshans and a big power arm in Kloffenstein. And I think, tell me if I'm wrong, but I think he's still 17 years old. I think he doesn't turn 18 until later this summer. So, yeah, another really good pick. And we've liked him since last summer when I saw him a lot.
And then once we got through that first day, a guy like Mike Siani, who's committed to UVA. UVA recruits usually are hard to get to sign. They're tough signs. They're not quite like Stanford, but they're kind of like Vanderbilt in Florida. They get their guys to campus. Letters get sent out, don't draft me, or they pull themselves out of draft like Mike Vassell. Brandon Neek, the left-hander, sent out a letter that, he didn't pull himself out of the draft, but he said, I'm going to Virginia. We didn't hear from Mike Siani, but after not seeing him go on the first day, I thought, okay, it's going to be really hard to pay this guy what he wants to not end up in Charlottesville. And then, boom, 4th round, Cincinnati Reds select Mike Siani. And I was blown away. I was like, all right, well, Mike Siani obviously wants to sign because if you go in the top 10 rounds, 98% you're signing. In the slotting area, I did the numbers, the other night. 98% of the top 10 round picks from 2012 to 2017 signed. Most of the time, if they don't sign, it ends up being something medical related. So Siani's going to sign. I would put money on that. And it was in the 4th round, which for the Reds, that guy was a possible first rounder. Plus defense, plus speed, plus arm, potential for plus power. 4th round pick. Obviously a lot of value there.
That's a great steal, too. I remember watching him last summer and then, again, early fall with Team USA. And tremendous talent. There's a high floor in him as well for a high school kid. He has a high floor. There's not a ton of risk there at all.
And then Charlie Mack for me in the 6th round to the Twins. Another high-value pick, an absolute steal. He's another guy that has no business not going in the top 3 or 4 rounds. Can absolutely hit. The position future for him is a little bit of a question. It's not that he's a bad defender. He's kind of got that strong, mature frame. So shortstop is not where he's going to play. Third base, the bat will profile. Second base, the bat will profile. Last summer and fall, he kind of dabbled a little bit in catching. I think it's one of those guys where the bat's so good that you're not going to put him back there because you just want to let him hit. So third base, second base, 6th round guy. Again, tremendous value for the Twins with Charlie Mack. Clemson recruit, so unfortunately for the Tigers, they're going to miss out on a guy that I think they thought they were getting, but, the Twins are going to probably get him now. But let's move on to day 3. 11 through 15 rounds, that's where, it almost acts for me like another day 1 or even the early day 2, like those guys, some of those big names that we hear go in the 11th round, 12th round, 13th round, because you got a free $100,000 to play with. Once you go over $100,000, that money starts counting towards your pool. So you got some wiggle room to work with. So we see some interesting names go. You're not going to see any 7-figure guys, but you can see guys sign there for $500,000, $750,000. So again, we're going to see some prospects before things, kind of peter out and we get those late rounds. The org fillers or take the flyers on the guy. Like a Kumar Rocker probably ends up going late. Committed to Vanderbilt, but we know he's not going to sign. In those early picks, early day 3, who are some of the guys that stood out for you and why?
Well, my first favorite of the day was Riley Thompson to the Cubs in the 11th round. That one just smacked me right in the face because I saw Riley Thompson about as good as you could possibly see Riley Thompson. I saw him pitch against, I think it was North Carolina early in the year, and he was just absolutely lights out. I mean, when I wrote him up, I said, hey, this is a potential top 3-round pick. He had it all. He had everything working. He commanded the fastball. And I think I may have seen the start of his life, but I saw what I saw. There's no doubt in what I saw. Yeah, it's in there. So that one was a good one. I hope the Cubs are able to sign him. That'd be a power arm, big arm with stuff in their system right away. The 12th rounds, I really liked. I've always had a thing for Hunter Fiducia, the catcher from LSU. I know he didn't finish the last half of the year too strong, but I saw him originally in the Northwoods League last summer. Tried to sign him when I was scouting. Tried to sign him with club. Wasn't able to. He went to LSU. Had a good first half, but like I said, just kind of downhill from there. But I've just always had a liking, to the athlete and to the tools he has. The other good picks I thought in the 12th round from Texas, both arms, Shugart and Kingham. They both went in the 12th. We'll see if they sign or not. But those are 2 pretty good arms to draft in the 12th round. They're probably a reason they got to the 12th with a signability or maybe a past injury or something. But, we can only speculate on that. And then the 13th round, the last one I'll mention is Jason Billis. He went to the White Sox in the 13th round. And, again, I saw him kind of like the Riley Thompson start. I mean, sometimes you see guys really, really bad, and sometimes you see them really, really good. And I saw Billis's first start of the year in Coastal Carolina, held a tournament, and Billis was just lights out for 5 or 6 innings, just electric slider, electric fastball, swing and miss after swing and miss. And again, I left the park thinking, gosh, this is a top 3 or 4 round guy based on what I saw. But I think he maybe struggled and maybe in the middle half of the season, then kind of turned it up again at the end. But Billis in the 13th round is a great get too.
And for me, a couple high schoolers, and both were Padres picks actually, 12th and 13th round. In the 12th round, we saw third baseman Sean Gilby go. Played a little shortstop in high school, but he moves, to third base for me. He's got a plus arm, so it'll play over there. But really for him, it's about the plus raw power that he has. There is some swing and miss there, so the questions as to whether he's going to get to it consistently. But obviously, getting someone like that in the 12th round, being able to pay him, probably $500,000, maybe $750,000 at most, that's a good get. He's a guy I thought could have gone 3rd, 4th round easily. So to get him in the 12th round is obviously pretty good. And then the 13th round, they turn around and get Antoine Kelly, who's a long, projectable lefty from Illinois. Our guy, Phil Kerber, saw him his last career start in high school, and just out of nowhere, he was 92 to 94, up to 95, which he hit in the 6th inning. So that velo carries deep into the game. Breaking ball, still coming along, but it's projectable. You look at that frame, it's long, it's loose. I have no doubt that Padres are going to be able to sign him out of the 13th round, and obviously, pretty good stuff to gamble on. So that's a look at some interesting picks from each day, 1, 2, and 3. Before we wrap up here, let's talk a little bit about some teams that overall stood out for you. Who, as a team, kind of the draft on the whole, stood out for you.
Well, you know me, I can't just give you one name or one team. So, I mean, it's hard to ignore the Royals and the Rays, what they did on day one and early day two. But that was kind of a part of them having so many picks. I mean, so you really have to, I mean, the Royals, they've got Brady Singer, Kowar, Lynch from Virginia, Bubick, Bolin, a big righty from Memphis, Isbell and Cole. Eric Cole is an outfield I absolutely love from Arkansas. Fourth round was a great spot to get him. I would have started talking about him in the third round, but they got him in the fourth, so that's a great pick. And then on the other side with the Rays, I mean, they got Liberatore, our favorite. They got McClanahan. They got Schnell. You know, the high school guy's better than me, obviously, but I remember seeing him last summer and thinking, wow, this is an athlete that can hit. And that's what we're looking for. We're looking for athletes that can hit. And after him, Tyler Frank from Florida Atlantic, Tanner Dodson, one of my personal favorites, two-way guy from Cal, Ford Proctor, who I loved in the Cape last summer from Rice, and then Witherspoon, the center fielder from Tulane, who I actually saw against McClanahan, and it was left on left. McClanahan's throwing 98, and Witherspoon was just hanging right in there, just like wasn't fooled in any pitch. Credit to both of them. I mean, McClanahan was just dealing that night too, had a good game, but Witherspoon just hung in there working for a couple walks, and so they really did some damage up top. So as far as my two favorite best drafts, it's got to be the Royals and the Rays just because of the amount of premium guys they got. Now, if you want to go throughout the draft, I really like what the Oakland A's did, and I really like what the St. Louis Cardinals did. A's did it with mostly college guys who, in my role is I see mostly college guys.
Right.
And I probably saw about 300 of the, I don't know how many college guys were drafted, but there's usually, 1,200 or 1,300 total guys drafted, and about 2/3 of those are college guys.
Right.
So I only saw less than half of the college guys, but I really like what Oakland did with Murray and Jameson Hanno, another one of my favorites, and Jerry Meyerman, Hogan Harris. I really like the bat of Rivas from Arizona, so I thought they really did well. But overall, knowing what I know about the high school class that I saw last summer and then this last fall as well, anytime you get a Nolan Gorman and kind of leverage the risk, I guess, with Griffin Roberts and Lucan Baker, then you throw in a Mateo Gill and a Stephen Gingrey from Texas Tech. I know he's injured, but if he comes back, it's a plus changeup, low 90s lefty, pitchability. I mean, you're looking at a guy that probably is going to go in the first or second round in Gingrey. You got Nick Dunn in the bat from Maryland. He's a little pull happy, but he's got power. He's a second baseman. He profiles well at second base. And then Edgar Gonzalez from Fresno State, a good arm out of the bullpen. And then the seventh round, they got a kind of a sleeper. I'm not sure if he wasn't a sleeper coming in, but Brendan Donovan from South Alabama.
He's on the draft board, right? In top 200 guy.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, just beautiful swing, has bat speed. Had a rough year at South Alabama. Instead of hitting like 350, I think he hit 295 or whatever for whatever reason. But man, they don't make many swings with bat speed like that. And he's athletic. Played short, played third, played a little bit second. So I really like what the Cardinals did from top to bottom.
Yeah, I piggyback on that. Oakland, like we talked about on the podcast, they got Kyler Murray, big risk, taking that pick, but they still made out pretty well, getting Jeremy Ironman later, I think it was. And then, that first day was pretty good for them. Rays was another team that I wrote down, getting Liberatore, McClanahan, two of the best lefties in the draft where they did, Nick Schnell, in one of the comp rounds, athletic guy that can hit, like you said. So definitely for me, the Rays are a team that stood out. But the other one for me is the Rangers. I'm the high school guy, so obviously I see all the high school guys. I'm biased towards the high school guys, and the Rangers are very biased towards the high school guys. They love upside. They love those high school guys. But Cole Winn, Owen White with their first two picks, two of my favorite right-handers in the draft. Cole Winn obviously was lights out all year. Owen White we've been on for ages, going back to Shooter Hunt's first report on him. Really athletic kid, three-sport guy. He's going to take off now that he's focusing fully on baseball. But then after that, Jonathan Ornelas, shortstop, Arizona kid, going to move to second base, third base, but like we said with Gilby, he can hit. So let him play wherever. He can hit, and he's going to grow into some power. He was a big winner for me at area code games, so they get him. Well, with their third pick, I like that. Mason Englert, another strong right-hander, Texas arm, exactly. Toby Bicknell, our guy in Texas, saw him really good late in the season and jumped him up the boards. But then Jace Easley, he's an interesting one. He's the son of Damian Easley, so big league bloodlines. He got plenty of looks because he played with a guy named Nolan Gorman. Teammates at O'Connor High School out of Arizona, so obviously he got seen quite a bit. He's a skinny kid. Like, he needs to put on some weight. He walks out in the field, and you're like, how are you going to put this guy in pro ball right now? But it works. He can really hit. He can really run. He can really play shortstop. He has strength now. It just doesn't look like it. He's going to add strength to that frame. So just a tremendous player. So for the Rangers to get a guy like him, I love that, those first 5 picks. Lots of upside, definitely a lot of risk, but certainly a lot of upside. If they hit on, a couple of those guys, they're going to be doing pretty okay. Right. And then, a day 3 pick for them that's pretty interesting is Destin Thompson. 6'7", 220-pound, lefty out of Louisiana. I haven't seen him in person personally, but I've seen the video. Trey Sofio, our guy in Louisiana, tells me about him. Really interesting guy. Can run his fastball into the low 90s. Breaking stuff is coming along, but it's a pretty easy and athletic delivery. So it's a Rangers pick. A lot of upside, certainly a lot of risk. So that's a great look at the 2018 MLB Draft. Seifert, really can't thank you enough for helping out, covering the draft. It was a lot of fun.
Yes.
It's been a lot of fun. So great analysis as always. So we hope you guys enjoyed it. Be sure to jump on prepbaseballreport.com. Check out all the coverage that we've got. We've got notebooks from each day. David, you got some stuff over at d1baseball.com as well. We're now going to take a quick breath and try to gather ourselves, over the weekend, maybe for a week, and then jump right into coverage for the 2019 draft with all our summer stuff. Let's get it going. For David Seifert, I'm Nathan Rohde. This is Coffee and Curveballs, and until next time, we'll see you guys at the ballpark.